Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you all to this webinar on the maritime sector with the theme, what do you do when you hit a snag during clearing of cargo in the Nigerian ports and terminals? And to help with these discussions, we have on the panel Dr. Kayode Farinto. He's the National Vice President, the Association of Nigerian Licensed Custom Agents. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning, gentlemen.
Thanks. Good morning. We also have Mr. Sam Epia. He's a BOT member of the Rivers Bayelsa Shippers Council. You're welcome, sir.
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
Everyone. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. We also have Mr. Alban Igwe. He's currently the Director for Education and Training of the Council for the Regulation of Freight Forwarding in Nigeria. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you.
We're supposed to be having the National Secretary, Mukaila Babatunde, from the Association of the Nigerian Licensed Customs Agents, but I think he will join us, so we'll just go ahead. Also on the panel, we have Mr. Vivek Menon. He's the head of collective action. Oh, okay, Vivek is not on, but we have Mr. Martin Benderson. He's the head of the collective action and partnerships, MACN. Oh, okay, I think Mr. Mukaila has just joined us.
Morning, everyone. Happy to be here.
Good morning, Martin. And we also have the Chief Executive Officer of the Integrity Organization and the Convention on Business Integrity, Mr. Soji Apampa. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, sir. So for participants with questions, there's a chat area. Just leave your questions on the chat, and it will get attended.
to. Please, we should leave questions in the Q&A section, not in the chat, so it's easy for us to reach.
Okay, sorry, in the Q&A section, please. And I'll hand over to Mr. Soji Apampa now to move this forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. She didn't introduce herself, but I'll introduce her. Her name is Cynthia Akpomudere, and she is the Director of Stakeholder Relations of the Convention on Business Integrity. Thank you very much indeed, Cynthia.
Thank you
for the introduction. So I will also join Cynthia in welcoming everyone to this particular webinar. What do you do when you hit a snag during clearance of cargo in Nigeria? Before we even go into the detail, I think I should ask the Managing Director of Cloverleaf Shipping, Mr. Sam Epia. Please, can you tell us what kinds of snags do you hit when you are trying to clear cargo in Nigeria's ports and terminals?
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Mr. Epia, you are muted at the moment, except you're speaking from another device. Okay, perhaps in the meantime, I should move that question.
Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
we can hear you. We can hear you.
There seems to be, it seems to be having network challenge here. It's breaking. Your question was coming on and off. You were going on and off. So I couldn't get you clearly, but I'm sure you are asking based on the topic, what what do I do when I have a hitch or a snag clearing cargo out of the port? Is that correct?
No, sir. I was asking what kind of obstacles do you experience when you try to clear your cargo through the port?
Well, thank you very much for creating this platform for us as shippers. Actually, I am a UT member of the Reverse Bayelsa Shippers Association in Port Harcourt. Of course, we have multiple challenges at the port, which we all know. This is not new to us in Nigeria, particularly, ranging from the multiple documentation system. Everybody's been crying for single window to simplify the clearing process. But today we still have a lot of hitches, like for instance, there are issues that arises sometimes from HS code classification, where you have your classification already. When you process your Form M, you have your PA, and you lodge your SGD or entry at the port with the customs, and somewhere along the line it is, it doesn't fall into the appropriate classification. Then argument ensues. For clearing agents who really don't, that are not really grounded and don't have, the documents, say, for instance, the explanatory note to be able to go into these things and then make their arguments with the customs, they will have a lot of challenge. So sometimes customs will want to pull out your item from a HS code that is probably 5% into a HS code that is 10% or 20%, all for the purposes of, making arguments and then coming with some undercurrent negotiation and all the rest of it. Again, you have, when you manage to get out of the port, what happens today in the port, especially in Port Harcourt, or less specifically, I would say, you have multiple alert systems, multiple alerts from various departments, which is really, really a problem to shippers. You see a cargo that has been released from the shed, 100% examination performed, cargo is released, complete duty paid, complete documentation, but somewhere along the line, you say you get a alert at the gate, or you get a alert from only God knows where. And then it's an issue of you go and clear the alert from these respective positions, which is not supposed to be. For us, we believe that during examination, everybody concerned should be there to examine this cargo and give one-time release. But you have multiple alerts that you face at the port. Again, when you come out of the port, after going through all the issues and problems there with the multiple agencies, and then your cargo is coming out, you are transiting out of the port. You have what they call the FOU. You have what they call the strike force. Now, sometimes the strike force in Port Harcourt, for those of us that are familiar with Port Harcourt, but I'm sure Mr. Igwe will be very familiar with the situation I'm explaining here. The strike force is based at Area 1 in Port Harcourt, and then they have a team of officers at One. Now, the officers, there's a lot that will be imposed or that is imposed on your cargo by the strike force. You will have to go to Area 1 from One. This is about 16 kilometers One to Area 1. So it takes about 3 days turnaround time to go to Area 1, clear with them, and then they send, signal back to One for you to get your cargo out of the alert. If you are going out of One, you get to a point in transit between One and Eleme Junction, you are getting the FOU people that you have to go and register your cargo with before you can transit. So in fact, there are a lot of, it's a gamut of problems that we have there at the port while you clear cargo. I think I want to pause there for the time being.
Thank you very much, Sir Samson. Pierre, we're very grateful. Perhaps I could take this to Mr. Igwe now to ask, at which of these different obstacles are you more at risk of having to pay unreceipted payments? At which stages during the cargo clearance process are you at risk, or should I say vulnerable, to making such payments? Mr. Igwe, please go ahead, sir.
Well, thank you very much. I don't know how to estimate the risks, because the risks, as you call them risks, you cannot predict most of them, strictly speaking. It depends on the disposition of whoever is the officer in charge. But however, some are a lot more predictable. When it's in the ports, you find them a lot more predictable. When you have post-port clearance challenges, then they become a lot more unpredictable, because the officers have their own motives other than national interest. I think that we should begin to address this matter more fundamentally by looking at the entire clearance process of cargo. Some people think the key beneficiaries are the freight forwarders. No, that is why you find a whole lot of frustration along the entire chain. Now, if we isolate ourselves from the global community by frustrating the supply chain, creating a bottleneck at our ports, and even beyond the ports, who is at risk? The country is at risk. It is the national interest that is at risk. I tell you what I mean. The World Bank looked at how countries are competitive, and they came up with one parameter that can make countries competitive as far as international trade is concerned. They came up with what they call Logistics Performance Index, LPI. I mean, it's a public document. Anybody can Google World Bank LPI. Now, Nigeria's rating among 110 countries currently is 110 out of 160. That's a big risk that the country is getting less and less competitive. And if you put this country side by side with our neighbor, like Cotonou, Cotonou is 50 out of 110. So you can see how the country is more at risk, that we are losing cargo to Cotonou. Cote d'Ivoire is about 75, and Nigeria is 110 out of 160. That is a big risk. So we begin to address who is at risk more before we even cascade it down to where do we pay more. And the risk is not just about the financial risk. It's about the economy's entire economic risk that we as a country is facing, because
Can I jump in and ask a quick question, sir?
Yes, please.
My question would be, are we worsening on this index year on year, or have we improved? For instance, last year were we number 160, and then this year we're number 110?
Okay.
Or are we stationary? What is the trend?
Well, Nigeria is retrogression. Last year we were 90, and this year we're 110. I mean, 2018 we're 118. This index is measured every 2 years, and I think we are on a downward spiral. So serious attention must be taken holistically if this country has to be competitive. It's not about looking at the freight forwarder who has the incidence of this all these hitches and snags and whatever you call it, it falls somehow on the freight forwarder because that is where he makes his daily bread. But strictly speaking, it's something that is falling on the whole nation. We're at a very big risk. And we'll begin to address that risk from that point of view before we can then get any tangible results. I would like you, Mr. Coordinator, to escalate this. This is the thing that Nigeria needs to address if we want to trade competitively in the international market. Now, I was privileged to be a member of the Presidential Committee on Ease of Doing Business some 2 or 3 years ago, and we were addressing how to facilitate cargo movements and dwell time and all the rest of it that had to do with cargo clearance. When we finished, we thought we could achieve 24-hour clearance, but we failed to address post-port hitches and post-port conditions. For example, when a cargo is cleared, assuming there are no hitches in the port, you get a cargo cleared. What's the guarantee that this cargo is going to get to a destination, given our security challenges on the roads? Can this cargo leave 12 midnight? Can it leave 1 a.m.? Can it leave 2 a.m.? No. The answer is no, because release the cargo from the port, subject the cargo to some more difficult risks that condemn with, because the freight forwarder does not have arms men to follow him to the destination. So the shipper is at risk, the freight forwarder is at risk, the country is at risk. So I think then we realize that, okay, this business is a supply chain issue, it's not just a port issue. So I think I will encourage you at the forefront to champion this cause through Nigeria's competitiveness. How does this country get out of where we are? I mean, we are the giant of Africa. Our economy, our GDP is possibly more than the whole of West Africa combined. And then we are losing market, losing reputation, losing competitiveness to just small countries like Cotonou and the rest of them.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, sir. In fact, what we have heard from the first 2 contributions is that what increases the risk within the port are the opportunities for discretionary reviews. For instance, if you have to have discretionary reviews around the HS code classification, and then different milestones or alerts that you can have in the process, even before you leave the ports, just because you have had a clean documentation from customs and the rest of it, doesn't mean you can't be stopped again and re-examined again before you leave even the port's premises at all. And that actually in ports, with all of those challenges, is still more tolerable and more predictable than what you can get once you leave the ports. And once your container gets out of the ports, you have another set of challenges, but which are not as predictable. And a lot of it, as you said, Mr. Igwe, depends on the disposition of the officer that is in charge. So again, back to this discretionary action. To reduce discretion and to reduce errors in paperwork and so on, people have been clamoring for single window, at least within the ports, and to simplify the documentation. So once the information is captured at some point, it is available to all of those other people who need it. You don't have to then keep shopping the same information around. But perhaps this is a good point for me to ask the Association of Nigerian Licensed Customs Agents to please focus on what happens within the ports. Within the ports, have we identified all the obstacles, the places where you are likely to have a challenge with clearing your cargo? Have we identified all of those? And if we have we also identified all of the places where you are at risk of being asked to make unreceipted payments. So I think this question should go to the National Vice President, Mr. Kayode Farrington. You are still muted, sir.
What about now? I hope I'm audible now. Hello?
Yeah, you are.
Yes, you are,
Okay.
sir.
Yes, I said what I did within myself is to subdivide the process of clearance of cargo in our ports. I do what is called pre-clearance process, the clearing process per se, and post-clearance process. But within the port, you are vulnerable at every point. And simply because that, number one, there is no legal framework as to determine when a particular department is culpable, delaying cargo unnecessarily. There is no punitive measure and there's no punishment for such cargo. The Dr. Igwe just spoke about the logistic performance index. If you look at it in the port, you realize that the various security agencies, particularly Nigerian Customs Service, is hiding under the fact that they will tell you the compliance level is not too impressive, and that's why they are doing whatever they like. And that is not true. I took my time to do a research in the last 7 years, and I look at it, the compliance in the last 7 years has been increasing in geometric progression. So why is it now that at every point in time, customs will query your consignment, not only for HS code, but every department of customs want to query your goods for value. And that is why the General Agreement on Tariff and Trade, Article 7, we talk about the fact that for you to clear a cargo, there are 6 principles. If I give you what is called the value, which I use in buying my goods, and you are quoting such value, there are other 6 principles that will follow. But what do we have in Nigerian custom? We have a situation where they just go to the market value because, number one, government is also culpable. Government continually giving Nigerian Customs Service targets. So the only thing Nigerian Customs will do is to make sure that they want to meet up that target at all costs. And in doing so, I'm twisting Nigerian importers to pay even duty when you have actually declared your cargo. I stand to be corrected, and that is why I say that Nigeria, even if we have single window, and you say in everywhere, in all climes that I've visited, where there are single window, the lead agencies are always always customs officer. But if you put Nigerian customs to drive our single window, we'll run into a lot of problems. 70% of the issues in the port and the delay in the port is caused by Nigerian Customs Service. Number one, they have preponderance new unit of customs department. You have valuation, you have CIU, you have customs police, and all these units ensure that they want to be part of cargo clearance. You have in every custom command, the controller set up his own task force, the deputy controller in the terminal set up his own task force, and documentation goes through all this procedure. And that is even why I say that the only solution finally is final automation. And even if we have final automation, the government should now begin to look at what department that is giving Nigerian government bad image in the area of logistics, FPI that Dr. Abman spoke about. If it is custom, there must be punishment. And there should, when I was a baby agent, if you have a clearing document, every department that you visit would time at what particular did that document get to your table and at what particular did it leave that table. But here, it is not so. An officer can lock your consignment or your document in his drawer and they say he has gone abroad on holiday and nobody queries and nobody punishes. That is on the area of customs. The role of also government agencies is not well spelled out. I want to pick one agency, government agency. Looking at Standard Organization, for instance, Standard Organization is supposed to be a regulatory agency, regulating, ensuring that it's only consignment that can meet up with international best practice, particularly consignment that has constant cap. That is Standard Organization Conformity Assessment Program and Certificate. But what do we have here? Even when you have your SONCAP certificate, SON still subjects importers to a lot of illegitimate payment. So you now have a situation where, aside being a regulatory agency, most of these regulatory agencies have now turned themselves to revenue collection agencies. And nobody talks about anything, nobody queries them. And they can delay your cargo at any time. So even if you have a single window, there must be attitudinal change. There must be a legal framework to punish any particular department that delays cargo unnecessarily, illegitimately. So that by the time you start doing that, if, for instance, a controller of customs is removed today for deliberately somebody in his department delaying cargo, you will see that.
Sorry, we lost you there. Dr. Farrington.
We are supposed to make sure that 70% of this agreement has been ratified and implemented. But what do we have? From my chart, we have not even implemented 20%. So you see at every point in time, when you are clearing the cargo in the port, you always meet a snag from security agencies, government agencies, Nigerian Customs Service. We also need to know that WCO brought something we call time release study. At what point is a cargo release? When does it take for a cargo, when it is released, to get to the consignee's warehouse? And that takes me back to what Chief Harman is saying, Dr. Akwankpa, that even when you exit your cargo in the seaport, we have over 7 units of customs officers again, subjecting the same cargo to examination. We now have a situation where customs police, that is ordinarily supposed to be a disciplinary measure, internal mechanism of Nigerian Customs Service, still subjecting this same consignment to illegal checks. We have what is called FOU and all the ones that he has mentioned. And additionally, we also have what is called SWAT. I think we're in America.
Dr. Farrington, can I then ask you a question? Is it
right.
that within the customs service themselves, they do not have a mechanism for ensuring compliance? It looks like they are second guessing each other.
Before now, sir, when we started with what is called clearance procedure during the DICO era, then we have modernization of custom. There was a clearance procedure. Ordinarily, what we are supposed to do is to build on that clearance procedure and improve on it. But we have a situation where every department of custom now distorted the clearance procedure. Instead of now going fully automated, they now make sure that even when you release your cargo online, the DC terminal still want to dispatch your consignment to the terminal operator. And if it
Wow. We're struggling to hear you, Dr. Farrington.
I guess his internet is fluctuating.
Before now, during the era, that ordinarily we need to improve on. But what do we have? We have a situation where every department of customs want to see what happens to a particular declaration. And that is very, very discouraging. Even when you have a genuine declaration that is supposed to flow seamlessly, it is frustrated. So there must be attitudinal change on the part of customs. There must be a legal framework that will punish every departmental head for any unit under you that deliberately delays the cargo. On the part of the freight forwarders, I'm not saying that we're saying if out of the 12 deservers we can have Judas, but I want to know, and I put it to everybody, that the level of compliance is increasing on a yearly basis. Because you have to juxtapose the revenue you collect with the money, the performance indicators in the port. But you have a situation where the Nigerian Customs Service deliberately frustrates this process. So what you now have a situation where some people who are naturally non-conformists want to say, since even if I do the needful, I may still have problems. CBN, the role of CBN is not allowing flow of cargo through a monetary policy. When assignment last year, as of December, this year now, we have about 115 items not have access to forex exchange. And 70% of importation in Nigeria, the importers source for the money in the open market. Having sourced for this money, for them to open from them in the commercial bank, it becomes a problem. So you now have a situation where if a man is carrying biro, because of CBN policy, he has to call it pencil for him to be clearing that consignment, because even biro is not under fiscal policy provision, but because of the forex provision by CBN. So there are too many things that needs to be done holistically. If the rating of Nigeria is 110 this year, I will even challenge those people that are doing it, because I know that we are supposed to be at the bottom.
Wow. That's a very strong statement, sir.
So that's it, because I am an operator on a daily basis. I enter the port. In the next 1 hour, I'll be in the.
Okay, sir. So perhaps,
Mr. Coordinator,
okay, we're going to continue with this line of discussion, but maybe we can go a little deeper by asking.
Highest command, nothing is done about it. So what do we do? It becomes a frustrating this situation. I stand to be challenged. I have that.
From Dr. Farrington's contribution, it has become clear that the role of customs in the clearance process itself is a major challenge.
Hello?
Yes, so we're just looking at x-raying your contribution so far, and I just made the statement that it appears that customs is a big challenge in the process.
70% of the snag, 70% of the snag in the port is caused by customs. 70%. By customs. Yeah.
Then
customs.
I want to ask the other panelists, what do they think is responsible for the 30%? Is there a major agency that you can identify and say, after customs, it is this agency?
Can I say something, sir?
Yes, sir.
Well, not strictly speaking, accusing finger on one agency. I think that there's an institutional challenge. First, there is an operational challenge. There is a system challenge. You know, when we talk about having single window, it's not strictly speaking custom affair, it's a system affair. The country must realize that we are not competing against custom against some. We are competing against other nations. And the system we put in place will either make us go down or go up. And we are going down. We're going down on several metrics. We're going down on several metrics. Nigeria is the country that has the leading economy in Africa in terms of GDP. But in terms of poverty index, Nigeria is low on the bottom and is projected to go down. Hunger index is increasing. So that is you can agree with Dr. Farrington that the metric may even be favorable to us, because every other parameter or majority of other parameters are going down. So an OSET will help them systematically, look at them as a system rather than when one agency brings a case, we approve. Right now, there was a time when they said that agencies should leave the ports. Okay, so what happens is agencies that have been asked to leave the ports because their role is strictly speaking regulation rather than operational, they go back. Some of them go to National Assembly and get a pass to come back to the ports. That means they are not doing their job proactively. We don't all need to be in the port to do our job. Okay, we are not port authority. So I think rather than accusing finger on any other agency, they will now begin to play defense. Let us look at it. Let us accuse our country that they have created institutional constraints, because this thing have not been well thought out. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I think at this stage we should now go into the second half of it. Now we have looked very much at where somebody has two devices on, please. Mr. Mukaila Babatunde, please, can you turn off? Okay, I would like to go to Mr. Mukaila Babatunde for him to open the discussion around the question for the day. So what do you do when you hit this snag? We already know that there's likely to be a snag. Within the ports, it's likely to come from customs more than any other agency, although there are many other agencies that can also give us a snag. We've talked about standards organization, we've talked about police, we've talked about other agencies that can bring up alerts even before you leave the port's premises. We know that outside of the ports, you have all sorts of task forces as well. So let's just focus on what happens within the port's premises now. And let me ask, what do you do when you face these challenges with customs? What can a shipper do? Mr. Mukaila Babatunde, please. Mr. Babatunde is the National Secretary of the Association of Nigerian Licensed Customs Agents. Is he on the call? It appears that, yeah, I can see you, sir. Mr. Babatunde, if you can please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now, sir?
Yes, now we can, but we can't see you, but we can hear you. We can only see the top of your head.
Okay. It's a pleasure being here.
Yes.
I would like to start by saying we have a crooked system. It's a systemic corruption. And it's going to be difficult for anyone to prefer a one-off solution to this. If I have to take your question pointedly, what do you do when you have a snag? There is virtually little or nothing you can do because the system is so corrupted that there is no way out for an average shipper. Take for an instance, we talk about police, customs alert and all this while, but then we need to understand that this is an international trade that has rules and regulations. Nigerian Customs Service belongs to WCO, World Customs Organization, and there are rules. There are trading rules. I'm going to talk about the revised Kyoto Convention. This talk about trade rules that every customs administration should engage to deliver on their mandate. Let me break it down as a practitioner. If, for instance, I have an issue with Nigerian Customs Service, 70–80% of the argument is always revolved around issue of value, irrespective of the fact that there are rules for valuation, the 6 rules. However, as far as Nigerian Customs is concerned, you are the whims and caprices of the officers. Now, let's take for an instance, I've declared a value. An average custom officer is alerting my cargo, the document, and I've come over with all evidences. The options left for me is to say, okay, I'm not going to part with a dime. I believe I'm good, I'm right. Then custom officer will tell you, okay, give me a bond. What is a bond? It's a promissory note that if at the end of investigation you are found wanting or the custom administration is proven right, thereafter you promise to pay the difference at the point of that argument. But then how do you get a bond? Whatever bond you promise custom must be cash backed. What do I mean by that? If I have any argument with customs to the tune of 5 million naira on the transaction, I must pledge that 5 million with a Nigerian bank for custom to let go of that cargo temporarily, pending the conclusion of this investigation or the argument, to decide my position. So you can see that head or tail, an average Nigerian trader lose. Okay? So when you talk about every other government agencies, the same rules apply. You actually do not have anything to fight your cause before them. They are the alpha and the omega in every discussion. And this is in defiance to the international trade best practices. The World Customs Organization actually have a rule. What is the essence of a custom administration? One, the transparency aspect is lacking. The predictability is lacking in Nigerian context. An average Nigerian trader could not predict, or in a business balance, you could not give a feasibility study of what your total landing cost. Because at every point, you are the whims and caprices of every stakeholder, government agencies we met on the road. We should not overemphasize this. A recent study conducted within the maritime practitioner here shows that you have 21 tables. When I say tables, you are meeting 21 departments in the line of cargo processes. And these 21 are just for customs administration of Nigeria only. So after this 21 table, you're out of the port. Then you find yourself on the road. What do you get on the road? You have another 12 units. If, for example, the federal operation units are costed on the way, and you put up a very strong position that you have been very compliant and this declaration is adequate, of course, they're going to threaten you to take you to their home warehouse outside the port. God help you if you get to that warehouse, as much as you are trying to prove a point that you're a better Nigeria, of course, you'll be punished. How do they punish you? You have another 12 units to contend with at that federal operation unit. On arrival, about 10 units will swarm on you asking for documents. If the time permits, I can enumerate them. You have the legal department, you have monitoring, you have this ICT, you now have a revenue. I think Mr. Pampa made a reference to, does it mean that customs are second guessing each other? Yes, they do. They do. If, for instance, a custom officer gave you appropriate value, because we still have some cargo processes that you just have to engage customs to obtain a value. Do you know that if a custom valuation unit, after all the due protocols, decided that this is the appropriate duty payable on the cargo, the other 9 custom units, that 21 department chain, are going to stop that processes per each section. And what is the question? They're going to tell you this value is a negotiated value. That the man who was saddled by the processes of custom to give a value, because if you need to discuss and agree on anything called value, that is why you have a valuation unit of customs. But then it's not acceptable to every other custom unit. Every customs officer are now a valuation unit. And the lack of transparency is the fulcrum of all this problem. I'm a custom broker of so many years of experience. I could not tell a client that your declaration is within a range of acceptable value to Nigeria customs, because the value to every declaration is known to only Nigeria Customs. Irrespective of the fact that this is an international trade, that you need to decide based on the rules of engagement, which is the evaluation.
So let me press you a bit, sir, Mr. Babatunde, before we run out of time, that so it sounds like it is all discretionary, despite the fact that you have 8 codes. Even you have to negotiate the HS code because that is still discretionary. And then the value that you have, they don't trust whatever invoices you have, so it will still be negotiated again. Is this where shippers or importers or exporters come under pressure to succumb to unreceipted payments?
To answer your question pointedly, as I always say, you are 100% correct. The HS code, Harmonized System Code, is an international document. The HS code is globally, but to Nigeria Customs, no matter what you declare, no matter the decision of WCO on a particular item, there is always argument concerning cargo HS code description. It's either by description, by function, of whatever mode. But this is in line with the way it is done all over the world. But to Nigeria Customs, I'll give you an example. An average shipper should have the capability to write to Nigeria Customs Service to request for an advanced ruling. It is done globally. Do you know that Nigeria Customs does not have advanced ruling department? That will have helped an average shipper to have a hand-on position on what is going to be the cost and the HS code classification of an item. If you do that with Nigeria Customs, even if you press and you have this position granted you from the headquarters, do you know that the chapter, the Custom Port Command will still query that and then tell you that that is not acceptable to them? So to answer your question, please, you have to negotiate your HS code. You have to negotiate the value. And customs have advantage. How do I mean? The more you do these arguments based on facts, material facts, the more the storage rent is accumulating on your cargo in the port. And the more the demurrage is accumulating on your TEUs, the container boxes. And this is charged in a progression. The first 3 days, maybe 5,000. The next 5 days, 10,000. The next 12 days, 12,000. Now, when you have like a 10 container load in the port, and the custom officer woke up from the wrong side of his bed and decided to stop the process, the first day you are going to be paying 25,000 naira per container to a shipping line. That's 250,000. And it's a dual system. Now, the port authority, now being concession to Nigeria, AP Mula, they are charging you 12,000 naira, is either APMT or what? It's charging you 12,000 naira per day on the same box. So you are at the mercy of that customs, because the first day of argument, you've lost 250 plus another 120,000.
Yes. That's
370,000. The following day, you get to his office to press further, and the man is running late. Custom don't have time of resumption. He runs late. He came in by 12 noon. You put up an argument by 2, 3. The man said, okay, you are still making argument with me. Okay, we'll see tomorrow. On the third day, you are running into 1 million naira. So you are now before the devil and the blue sea. You drop 100,000 unreceived, 300,000 unreceived with this customer and make advance towards the cargo, or do you continue this argument and run at a bigger loss? Because the customer knows that head or tail you lose.
Thank you very much.
The bottom line is Nigeria government needs to do more.
okay, it is very clear that if the government is able to get the custom high command to make the rank and file do the right thing at the right time, then this would be a major benefit to the shippers. Let me bring in Mr. Martin Benderson of the Maritime Anti Corruption Network to tell us about the network, their projects in Nigeria, and how they think they can help us in this wise to overcome the snags without having to keep racking up costs. Because it sounds like you have a choice. You either pay whatever it is that customs is asking you for, even if it is unreceipted, or you get ready for the long haul, where they make you pay over the odds for your cargoes and they still get their way in the end. And then we will come back to Mr. Samson Epia, because there are a few observations for him in the chat. Okay, so Mr. Benderson, over to you, sir.
Yes,
if you
thank
can
you.
Show us your face as well.
Can you see me now? Can you hear me?
Yes, we are seeing you very well.
Okay, very well. I lost connection there for a while. Well, first of all, thanks for the very open and frank discussion today. It's been very interesting to listen to, and there's a number of very interesting points being made. So let me just start by saying a few words about the Maritime Anti Corruption Network, and then also how we propose to support and address some of the challenges that's been discussed here today. The Maritime Anti Corruption Network is a private sector initiative in the maritime industry. We represent about 140 companies from the international players in the sector, so some of the larger ship owners as well as the broader supply chain. What's also important is that our members represent over 50% of the global tonnage being transported at sea. So when we look at the single port, we have quite a substantial leverage. There are many members in this network who are calling Nigerian ports, and that's also part of our methodology and how we can bring about change. We've been working in Nigeria for the past 8 years, primarily focusing on vessel clearance. So the clearance of vessels entering ports in Nigeria. We had some great successes, and what we're doing now is also to expand the focus on the broader supply chain. So looking at also the cargo clearance. And I think it was also a point by Mr. Sorry, what's your name there? Who made the point about the supply chain approach. You need to have an holistic approach when you address the challenges, and that's exactly what we've been seeing. When you start addressing corruption during vessel clearance and you are successful, there's a chance, and we have some records of this, that the bribery request may move to the land side, and you may actually end up facing them during the cargo clearance process. We know that many of the authorities involved, like customs and others, they also clear the ship and they also clear the cargo. So there is a need really to look at this holistically. Secondly, the previous speaker here, Mr. Babatunda, I think you made a good remark there in saying that we don't have the energy to fight these requests and those challenges. And I think that's exactly the point. You don't have the energy as a single company. And I would say it's a battle you are losing. What you need is a collective action strategy. That's what we've seen in our work. And what that means in practice is you need a commercial leverage of a group of companies to make stakeholders listen, to systematically document what are the challenges, and also to have a dialogue and see how could the governance system actually improve. As I said, we are coming with the international perspective of this, and we have some of the larger multinational companies behind us. We need to mobilize them to also work with their supply chains, because many of the custom agents, freight forwarders, they are part of these companies' supply chain. So what we are proposing is essentially to launch a collective action group who would like to improve the cargo clearance in Nigerian ports. And this would involve obviously looking at the corruption challenges, but also the broader inefficiencies that we may see due to lack of scanners and other things. But the key purpose would essentially be to look at how can you reduce corruption and also work with the governments, how can we improve consequence management? So there are actually some level of consequences when you're not following the procedures. And in cases where there are no procedures, how can we actually put procedures in place? So as I said, we had successes in Nigeria. We also work across many other countries. We had success stories from ports in Argentina, where we have taken this collective action approach, looking at the sector holistically, collecting data from the industry to see where are the systematic challenges, where are the large cash demands occurring, and where are the large or lengthy delays occurring, and trying to focus on the most painful parts and have a dialogue with authorities. How can you change these things? And some of the results we're seeing, as the example of Argentina, is we have reformed the whole inspection systems. So basically, how do you inspect the vessel and making sure that it's ready to load agriculture cargo, for example. So grain export and so on has been a big challenge there. So by making those reforms and having the collective bargaining power, you make stakeholders listen, both on the public and the private sector side, and you can actually change things to the better. And in the case of Argentina, we have gone from having a situation where you had about 20-30 millions of cash demands being collected from certain inspectors to a situation when we now have a 90% drop of those demands. So 90% drop in about 3 years' time. So I'm not saying we should do the same in Nigeria, but I just want to demonstrate that the collective bargaining power is important, and we need to form alliance. We need to form alliances with the national players in Nigeria, and we need to connect with your international supply chain partners. And that's why we are here. We would like to make that connection and also bring in the multinationals into this dialogue, because there's a keen interest from the global business community to see progress on these matters in Nigeria. I mean, let me stop here and then we can continue the discussion about more practically how this could work.
Okay, I think you should continue with that right now, Martin, if you can. Tell us about how you can assist. Is there any way, because we understand that in vessel clearance, there's a help desk where the vessels who are having challenges with the authorities are able to make reports and get assistance. Is there anything for cargo clearance?
Yes, thank you for that question, Soji. Well, what we have launched is a help desk for cargo clearance. So any company involved in the clearance of cargo can use this online system where you report your challenges directly to us. This is available online, and I think there's just a link now being sent through the chat function here. So you can click on this to see the system. It's a simple reporting form where you provide data on when is this occurring, who is involved, and what are the challenges. This will be filed into our system, CBI system, and a dedicated help desk manager will look at your case and revert to you and try to resolve this in real time. And how do we resolve it? Well, it's about escalating the channel, escalating this to the appropriate channels in customs and other authorities. We've been working with customs and others for, as I said, 8 years and quite successfully. So we do have these well-established contacts already in place. And in the maritime industry, especially on the vessel clearance side, we've seen some great wins. We had a help desk now for about a year. And we're talking about challenges that used to take days are now being resolved in hours. And it's very much due to the great work of Mr. Pampa and his team here, and also the stakeholder connections we have established here. So this is a very tangible tool that you can use with your staff to report challenges, and we will be here to assist you. There's also manuals available how you can use this, and we're also happy to walk you through this over an onboarding call, for example, where we can meet your staff and tell them how to use the system and explain the details of it. So this is kind of a first step to provide direct and immediate assistance, but it's also a great tool to collect data on systematic challenges, because that is what we need. We need to look at the big ticket items here. What are the main challenges, and how can we make government authorities and other stakeholders address this in a systematic manner?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Benderson. At this stage, I just want to bring Sir Samson Epia attention to, or sorry, is it Mr. Igwe that was asked about this logistics performance index? You know, what is the possibility of bringing importation into Nigeria or increased inbound logistics from neighboring countries? You can see the question in the chat. So it says, please speak more in the logistics performance index and perhaps in the light of the possibility of reducing, or in the light of the possibility of reducing importation into Nigeria, the fact that the imports are reducing.
Yeah, I have cited the chart. That was why I was emphasizing more on a holistic approach to the problem. We need to see the bigger picture. We need to see how it is affecting our economy, because we can only operate as a freight forwarder in Nigeria if Nigeria is still existing. If Nigeria goes into extinction, business-wise, there will be no freight forwarder, there will be no custom officer. So the bigger picture is that we must first of all think Nigeria before we begin to think about our pockets. Even if you have a degree in corruption, you need a country to practice that. Yes, you need a country. The country must first exist before you begin to practice your corruption, because there are those who have PhDs and they don't have a job. Okay, so what are the things that will make us to improve on our logistics performance index and otherwise not lose our standing in the international community? Like I said earlier, the document on logistics performance index is in the public domain. They started, they realized that the business we're doing, corporate forwarding, is critical to ensuring transfer of goods and possibly services between one country and the other. As long as we still live in a globalized world, there must be transfer of goods and services between one country and the other, because no country so far is self-sufficient. You must need something, other raw material or finished product. So facilitating those services and goods is critical to your competitiveness. Okay, and that is what the freight forwarder does. So to a large extent, the freight forwarder is a logistics or supply chain consultant in another name, if we have that name. Okay, so the various stakeholders, whether it is SON or custom, must not be encouraged to act in isolation, because the majority of these agencies are working in silos. And like Dr. Farrington has already said, when government gives them targets, they pursue the target and brush everything aside. Now, there's a saying that you can win a battle and lose the war. That's what we're trying to do. We want to win a battle, get this money, and lose the war. The bigger thing is the war. So, and that war is making sure it's war against incompetitiveness, because now Nigeria is going down on the competitiveness ladder. And if we don't arrest it, if we don't stop and say, come on, what is going on? Why is small Cotonou ahead of us? Population of Ghana is just about 1/5 of ours or less. Why are they ahead of us? Why is Cote d'Ivoire ahead of us? We have all the brains here, but it looks like sometimes when we do business, we leave our brain at home and go into the business front. And at the end of the day, there's money in your pocket, but you have lost the war. So that is the essence. Majority of the parameters on the logistics performance index, if you look at it, about 6 parameters. The ease of clearance of cargo is one of them. The timeliness of shipments arriving at the destination is one of them. So, and all of that. So you find that virtually about 80 or 90% of the parameters are freight forwarding related. So if the custom official realizes this, he is going to facilitate rather than frustrate the clearance process. Now, come to think of it, all the stringent rules, if they are really stringent, have never prevented arms from being in the hands of Boko Haram. Okay, so if we are really serious about the job, we should say, okay, security issues that part of what the customs should do and the individual agencies should do, like some. We're supposed to, anytime you bring a substandard product, that is economic security. Okay, that's economic security because now you have brought in substandard and then we lose money buying a fake material. So after all these stringent rules, have we improved on importing fake materials into this country? The answer is not a great deal. After all these stringent rules, have we improved bringing in harmful materials? Like it is the kidnappers, the guns the kidnappers are using, the Boko Haram are using, and all of that. Is it not someone that let them in? True. And we're even talking about the ports. You're talking about the ports. I was in Sokoto last year to conduct training for freight forward industry. Now, majority of the vehicles that we see in Sokoto, for instance, don't have papers. So they just easy access to coming from the land border stations. So why are we not getting everything right? Why is it that those vehicles are not having papers and they come into Nigeria? That means somebody is really compromising the system. So we must have to think holistically so that we can improve this country, so that we can operate. Because the moment the country goes down as it's going, we will not have a place to practice our corruption or practice our work, whatever it is.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Alban Igwe, for those very provocative but very picture-painting words. It's very easy to understand what you're saying. I think now I would like to go around the panelists for a few final words. Please, Mr. Samson Epia, just a quick final set of words, 30 seconds, to just let us know what you believe we should do when we hit a snag, and what are the next steps going from this webinar. You are muted, sir.
Hello, you can hear me?
Yes.
Yes, like I was saying, thank you for bringing me back again. In fact, 30 seconds is really not enough for me to express how I feel and what we should do. All the clearing experts there, especially from the clearing agents aspects, they've really expressed the feelings of shippers, and what should be done. Like the last, the Secretary General said, really not much that shippers can do in the circumstance, only to depend on platforms like this Integrity that I'm glad to have been linked up to, that we can use. Just to share a few experiences. We have here in Nigeria rules and regulations that can really help us. But I think it's an issue of attitude of our operators. We have in this country the ease of doing business. And I was on this feedback platform, something like this one you are doing now, to report issues of, challenges. Do you know that, and even with a direct connection to top ranking officers in PBEC, I reported cases to PBEC, and there's a classical example at Apapa Port. A case reported to them on HS code issue. PBEC intervened swiftly, but the result, did it come? No result until 90 days. 90 days, and the cargo had to be import. And because I insisted that I wanted to see the end of this, but it ended up spending 90 days import. Nobody compensated for the demurrage. Nobody compensated for, you know, the huge losses. But at the end, I was satisfied in my conscience that what I was arguing, my position, you know, was upheld. But this is PBEC, which is a federal government, you know, organization on ease of doing business. After my third experience with PBEC, I decided not to complain again to them, because it was like, the more you complain to them, the more delay you incur. So I just decided to push and press on my own through the customs head office in Abuja and the area officials, operators, or port commands. Now, what do you do? Or what have I done in the past? Like one of the clearing people mentioned, which I quite agree with. Before we import, sometimes what we do is, where we are not too sure, we write to the customs headquarters, to the Director General, asking for clarification on classification of the cargo we want to bring in. And then we've always gotten, you know, straight letters giving us the classification and clarification, which, you know, the agent normally attached to our declaration to the port. And so far it has helped us. So far it has helped. We've never had issue once there is a clarification from Abuja. And that is why I agree with what the clearingman said, that there should be a full-fledged department to handle issues of clarifications. Is this cargo supposed to be on HS code A or HS code B? You get the clarification, not necessarily having to go to Abuja. You should have this desk right at the area commands to make it much easier rather than going to Abuja. Imagine if somebody from Port Harcourt will have to go to Abuja, because some of these things, time is of essence. If you are writing by, you send them a mail, or you write and send by courier, and you are waiting, all right, in your house for a reply to come, then you could be wasting much, much more time. So there is the need always for you to personally or physically go down to the Abuja office and ensure that your document is attended to quickly. Once we have that, then it will help us a little bit to overcome some of these issues of, oh, your cargo is not properly classified, or it's properly classified. I will like to talk on some little more areas as it concerns shippers.
Okay,
Please.
I've taken out of all the extra minutes I have and given to you, sir. So I'll give you one more out of that very generous bag, please.
Yes, you know, look, there are issues of haulage regulation, talking about, you know, a holistic logistics chain program. Who regulates our haulage in this country today? Even the clearing agents. Yes, we have the CROFFN there, but I want to put it to the CROFFN boss that I think we have come to a point where we should have a tariff for our clearing agents, so that the shipper will know what actually he's supposed to pay, and not this, you know, different clearing charges for a single container. I'm telling you, if you meet 6 clearing agents to clear one 20-foot container, you will get 6 different tariffs. So we should have a common tariff regulated by the council to help shippers. Threat again, customs. They talked about this customs. I want to say, a very bad experience. This is very bad. That happened to my agent in one of the ports, precisely Port Harcourt, where customs officer, had to threaten my agent out of their office. We've gone because he is challenging, the query on a good ground. And then you have to threaten the clearing agent, we've gone. If you don't get out here, I shoot you. Just because of that extra money that they need. I think we have a real big problem. And I agree, collective bargaining is very important. And that is the reason why I want to key into this. It could be a platform for us to resolve some of these issues in the country. But I must say, with over 35 years experience in shipping, I have started as a shipping administrator and operator, liner operator, chartering, and now as a shipper. Corruption has always been a big problem with us in this country. I hope and pray that in my generation, we will see our ports operate like what we see even in places like Ghana. In Ghana, I went to Tema Port, a vessel loading export like we load here. I couldn't count up to 12 labor around the vessel. And this is a vessel that loaded over 10,000 tons within 5 days. Can you do that in Nigeria? It's not possible. So I think we have a long way to go. And Mr. Soji, I must say that this, your integrity, has a big task on hand. And I pray that we will together and collectively make our ports friendly and easy for business to do. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you very much, Sir Samson. I'm glad that you corrected it in the end. It is together. We cannot do it. We have to partner with the government. We have to partner with all the stakeholders. We have to partner with civil society to make it, because the problem is bigger than any individual one of us. Okay. Any final words? Let me ask the Dr. Kayode Farinto to give us any final words, followed by Ms. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I just want to say that the government should be serious about us having trade facilitation in our ports, so that the shippers that are bringing in this cargo will be happy. The first thing the government needs to do is there's need for them to have what is called executive order, which may serve as legal framework to punish any departmental heads that deliberately or illegitimately hold on to cargo unnecessarily. That's number one. The second one is government should discontinue giving targets to Nigerian Customs Service, because I'm of the opinion that with all the apparatus on ground, we can even generate more revenue. But the moment you are, giving them this target revenue, it is actually making them to work within that target and want to even may not even surpass it. But when you make it open, we are likely to achieve more than that. Thirdly, the issue of vehicles. Government must look at the policy on vehicles in the last 7 years. It does not really help the economy of this country. There's need for us to look at the auto policy so that it favors Nigerians and the government will make more money. The other one, which is very, very technical and very important, is government should not be thinking of having a proper custom officer at the helm of affair who has been trained either in Nigeria, locally or abroad, and who knows the technicality of this job. The need for us to stop politicizing the headship of Nigerian Customs Service. This will go a long way in assisting us. So also we were signatory to the TFA agreement. I want to say that the TFA of the federal government must be buckled up, involve even Nigerian shippers, because Nigerian shippers are the one bringing in this cargo. They need to tell them their input, and the licensed custom agent and the freight forwarder, so that we'll be able to achieve it together. Finally, the role of CBN and in cargo clearance has been working anti-clockwise, and it has not been helping Nigerian government. Most of the policies are anti-trade, they're anti-masses. The CBN should be allowed to be focused on only fiscal policy, monetary policy. The issue of fiscal policy is under finance, and finance can use Nigerian Customs Service to achieve most of the government goals and objectives. And finally, I also want to plead with our freight forwarders that as we are talking about this, there must be attitudinal change on our own part. Let us see how we can be patriotic so that together we achieve it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Maybe we can ask Mr. Babatunde to make a very brief submission, very brief. And then we go to Mr. Benderson before we end. You are muted, Mr. Babatunde.
Okay,
yeah.
You can hear me now. I
Yes,
think the basic purpose of this auspicious meeting we have had today is cannot be overemphasized. We need this collaboration. What is lacking presently is custom to business collaboration. Nigeria Customs Service are standing as an island. They fail to realize that they need the business community to come in to work this thing through and together. So I'm going to be recommending a technological-driven customs with adequate trade tools to achieve the same result. I'm going to concur with the position of my vice president that target should be the thing of the past. Nigeria Customs could actually make 3 trillion. What the government of Nigeria does not really understand is that these modern day custom guys, they are clever. Once they meet your target, the other target go to their pocket. What they do is to push your target on targeted funds. Almost 50% of what they declare to government still go to them. So if you throw it open, what you're going to have is Nigeria Customs doing their job professionally, and then Nigeria will be better for it. What is important is we need to work on the integrity of Nigeria Customs Service. We need to build on their integrity, because without integrity, the Customs Administration cannot fight corruption in Nigerian ports. They need to work on their own integrity. It's a good discussion today, and I believe with this collaboration, we can get a better Nigeria port system. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I invite Mr. Martin Benderson to have the last words, I want to read out what Mr. Amobi Oswizugbe has said. He says, "Dear Soji, the panelists did not hit the nail on the head with respect to the title, what to do when you meet a snag. I thought Mr. Benderson had addressed this. He says all the discussions so far have been centered on the nature of operations in the Nigerian seaports. In fact, the point is that when you meet a snag in Nigerian port operators, you negotiate and pay under the table money at the discretion of the Nigerian customs. I'm saying this authoritatively as an operator since the last 30 years. So, Mr. Benderson, if you could please outline very clearly some of the things you've mentioned before we close. So Mr. Oswizugbe understands that we are truly offering what he can do when he hits a snag.
Mr. Coordinator, I'm here to give my final words. Just take note.
Are you going to answer that question, sir?
I will. I will answer the question.
Are you answer that question?
Yes, please.
Otherwise, I think let me let Mr. Benderson go on, and we give you the privilege of the last word then. Okay,
thank you.
Mr. Benderson.
Okay, thank you very much, Soji, and thank you for that question. Yes, just to clarify, the help desk I mentioned is doing exactly this. The purpose is that you report when you face the demand and before any payments have been made. This is a real-time support desk. And as I said, we've been using it successfully with the maritime sector for a year now. And this is related to vessel clearance. So what happens is that the captain is standing there with customs and others inspecting the vessel, facing demands of bribery, and calling on us for their support. And then we can escalate this in real time to understand the situation and also support the captain morally to not give in and pay the money. So the solution we're offering here, as I said, it's real time. And the idea is that you should escalate it before any transactions have been done. And what we have now is a process where you can also, in advance, tell us that you have a cargo clearance or you're arriving in the port and so forth, so we can have that prior information to be ready to support you as these challenges occur. So the help desk is the tool to get that support for your staff, moral boost, but also in dialogue with the authorities, we can help you resolve the challenges. And as I said, we have a number of cases where no payments have been made. And these have been recorded, and these are primarily international companies, but obviously that have supply chains in Nigeria. And I would just like to push again, I think the international supply chain dialogue is very important here. We need to tell the customs authorities or others that it's not just a single company standing behind this, it's also a broader supply chain of global players that are supporting this. So, I mean, we're happy to send you further details about the help desk, how this can be used. And we invite all of you on the call to reach out to us and set up a call so we can teach you or train you on how you can use this and benefit from our support. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Benderson. Okay, Mr. Igwe, you can have the final word, and this time strictly 1 minute, please.
Okay. No, it can't be 1 minute, please, because there are issues raised that need to be responded to.
It has to be, sir. It really has to be.
Okay, let me say that. Okay, let me say that the questioner was asking for how we can heal the symptoms, while we are talking about how we will address the sickness. Okay, I think that we are talking about what do we do when we hit a snag. I believe that the consensus agreed that we're already in a snag, not hitting the snag. We're already inside a snag. And we need to, in my own words, I would think we should, having understood the impact of freight forwarding on national economy, we should declare freight forwarding business a state of emergency. Because if we do, we will not be addressing the symptoms. Let me tell you one of the symptoms. At the heat of the pandemic, when there was a lockdown, freight forwarding was declared as an essential service. And so the freight forwarders were working. Okay, while we were working, there were some demurrage that accrued. Now the freight forwarders were encouraged to talk to the council, write to the council, where the council had to make some petition, and some of them has been refunded because that was a snag. That was a snag due to pandemic. But that was not the only thing. We think there's more to these emergencies and ad hoc snags than this. The system requires an overhaul, critical overhaul. So I think that we should declare a state of emergency. Secondly, somebody has raised the issue of tariff. Well, let me report that the council, in agreement with them, or in collaboration with Shippers Council, are working on standard tariffs, and not just tariffs, but the HOPs. And that currently there's a project the council is having, which is a digital haulage system, so that the rickety vehicles you find a system now falling down and killing people will be a thing of the past when the digital haulage system, which will operate in an Uber-like fashion, comes on board, and which we're right now working on. So those responses are needed for them to know what we are doing. And I think that the shippers are funding the freight forwarding industry. So Nigeria, just like the transport operators are funding transport vehicles, because right now Nigeria doesn't have a national fleet. So it is the private operators. And the earlier we rise to in defense of these entrepreneurs, the better for us. That is why a holistic approach is more important than just addressing the symptoms. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Igwe. Okay, I think that there are two things. There is the one which is about what do I do right now about my challenge when I am stuck and my container needs to leave the port or the terminal, and also what do we do in the long run to make sure I stop hitting those snags. We have tried to address both things. In terms of the immediate solution, what has been done for vessels, because vessels also complain very seriously, because every single day that they are detained or delayed is major costs. Imagine that you have a delay or a problem with something or a dispute regarding an oil rig. That's $1 million. I mean, forget the million naira we were talking about earlier. It's $1 million. So there are serious cost implications, time implications also for vessels. But what we're saying is that we've put in place a system as the Maritime Anti Corruption Network where these issues are now being resolved in a timely manner. And the vessels, more vessels are able to resolve their issues within 1 to 4 hours and refuse to pay than those who are staying many days and have to incur those costs. So we are rolling this out into the cargo area as well. You have shown us very clearly that customs is likely to be the major place where we will have recurrent reports and issues, and the way we work with the Nigeria Shippers Council and the rest of the agencies at the port is to get this thing before the Comptroller General himself directly. And it's probably the first time that he will be seeing that he and his agency are actually the main problem within the ports, with evidence, with numbers. Otherwise, it's conjecture. And this is what the user experience diary that you will get when you go to the port call assist, that link you've been given in the chat area. If you go there, you will be able to use a tool which you can have on your phone that you can use to record your experience in the ports, whether it's going well, it's not going well, whether it's hit a snag, it's with custom, and whether you need help. And if you need help, you trigger it, there will be somebody to intervene live intervention as you're going. So the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let us encourage you to try it. If you haven't tried it, don't knock it. So on that note, panel discussion, I want to particularly thank everyone, all the participants today for making it to this panel discussion. I want to thank Mr. Kayode Farintor, the National Vice President of the Association of Nigerian Licensed Customs Agents, Mr. Mukaila Babatunde, the National Secretary of the Association of Nigerian Licensed Customs Agents, Mr. Sam Epia, who is Managing Director, Cloverleaf Shipping Limited, and is also the Board of Trustees member for the Rivers Bayelsa Shippers Association. We want to thank Mr. Martin Benderson, who is the head of collective action and partnerships from the Maritime Anti Corruption Network. We also want to thank Mr. Alban Igwe, who is in teaching, research, marketing, and capacity building in the areas of logistics, transport, and supply chain management, currently serving as the Director, Education and Training on the Council for the Registration of Freight Forwarding in Nigeria, CRFFN. So distinguished ladies and gentlemen, until we meet again on a similar topic, and we hope that you will join our Integrity Alliance on this, and that when we send you invitations, that you will respond, because we need to form a group that will interface with the government to ensure that these fundamental changes are taken forward. We have a very quick survey we would like you to fill, which is coming very, very late, and we apologize for that. If you will quickly fill this poll, as we are closing. So the first question, how did you hear about this event? We'll be very happy if you could quickly fill this poll. Did you hear of it through invitation emails, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, website? Whether you feel that the theme is of this particular webinar is relevant to current priorities in the maritime sector, whether the speakers have addressed the theme satisfactorily, whether the next steps are properly defined, and whether you are clearly aware of the issue and you have contributed meaningfully to the discussion, and whether the program has met your expectations. So we would like you to quickly fill those out. Again, we apologize that it's coming so late. So we've got 11 now. Let us quickly get 30 to 30 of us quickly, and we can close the webinar. So just to reiterate again, our next steps are that we're going to write to you and invite you to join the Integrity Alliance. We're going to share with you a user experience diary. We are collecting data, we're engaging with the government, we're engaging with civil society, we're engaging with business in order to ensure that we can, in a systematic fashion, start to address these challenges and ensure, like we've said, in the vessel clearance side, we now have an integrity system working side by side with the old system. It's time to have the same thing also in cargo clearance. We have 15 of 31, 17 of 31, 18. Let us quickly just fill out these questionnaires that take maybe 3-5 seconds to fill out, and then we move on. Okay, we're 19, 20. Once we get to 25, we will end the poll. So please, let's have another 5 so we can end this webinar. Can our panelists also respond? Are you able to respond?
No, we're not able to respond, so it's just for the participants.
Okay, then that is fine. Then
you said that host and panelists cannot vote.
Okay, then that is fine. Then we have the total number that we require. And as we can see, the results, most people got to hear about it through invitations. We feel that the theme has been relevant to current priorities. The speakers addressed the theme. Well, some are neutral. That the next steps were properly defined. Many more are neutral, which means we haven't done a good enough job in that area. But that overall, the program met our expectation. We mostly agree with that. That you're fully aware of the issue and you contributed meaningfully to the discussion. We will find a way to improve that in the next webinar. So distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for attending this panel session, and this is where we bring it to a close. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.